Hello and welcome to the Clarity Challenge. Our conversation starter for tonight is quite interesting and I can't wait to get into it already. Alright, but before then, when people come to you and they're like, you can't know everything about a person before you get married to them. Now, often, as true as that statement sounds, oftentimes when people say that, they're just being lazy. They're just being lazy. Listen, when we talk about doing things about a person, we're not talking about going out there to know everything about a person. For crying out loud, even some of the people you want to know stuff about don't even know nothing about themselves. Listen, when we talk about knowing things about people, we're talking about fundamentals. We're talking about things that are core, things that are concrete, things that are indispensable, things that are non-negotiable. Listen, when you get into a marriage, before you realize that the core values, the belief systems, the worldviews, the philosophies, the mindset of the person you got married to is directly inconsistent with your core values, then listen, you're lazy. That's like a scam. You're lazy. No, you're just being lazy. You're lazy mentally, you're lazy spiritually, psychologically, emotionally, intellectually, mentally. You are lazy, left, right, and center. You've just been lazy. You don't understand the dynamics of relationships. Listen, there are things you cannot faith on. You can't faith on certain things. It doesn't matter how you arrived at deciding to get married to a person. You can't faith on their core values. You have to prove beyond reasonable doubt that there is similarities of core values. Otherwise, how in the world do you define expectation? You can't build expectation on nothing. You can't build something on nothing. Nobody does that. You can't do that. And that is why the conversation starter for tonight becomes profound. Trust me. And so on the platform we asked, one of the questions that we asked on the platform today, we said, what do you value most in a relationship? That brings us back to the issue of value. Because as a matter of fact, it is the most important factor, as it were, in relationship decision making. It's the most important factor. Because listen, when the Bible says, can two walk together except they be agreed? Listen, the fundamental area or focus of this agreement has to be on values, because everything a person does or does not do is largely defined by their belief systems. It's largely defined by their priorities. It's largely defined by their vision goals, their motives, what it is that they've decided that they want to do with their lives. And so it's so important, because you see, what value does is that it helps create expectations. How in the world do you expect this if there was no basis for that expectation? Now listen, this is so important. There must be something that qualifies people to be your friends. There ought to be something that qualifies a person to be your friend, and then it is from your pool of friends probably that you're supposed to be talking about a life partner. And so if the people in your pool of friends are not readily available, as it were, of course you keep admitting people into that pool of friendship, but there must be a yardstick, there must be a basis, there must be parameters for defining who gets in there. The problem I have with feelings is that once it beclouds your mind, there is a sense in which it makes important things look like they're not important. And so this is so important. What do you value most in a friendship? Listen, you have to ask that question. It's an important question. Because when you ask that question, you know the expectations of your partner. When you have those conversations, your partner also knows your own expectations. And these become the basis for agreement. It becomes the basis for working together. It becomes the basis of expected behavior, no matter the circumstance. We can't do life without this. Listen, let me say this. Values are more important than feelings. Because at the end of the day, when there is a synchrony of values between partners, it creates the environment. It creates the atmosphere. It creates the possibility for the right feelings to be engendered, to evolve, to become a reality. But let's say the feelings are already there, but you didn't check values and core values, and then you go into a relationship, and then you begin to see all kinds of behaviors, all kinds of attitudes that puts you off, that switches you off, that are inconsistent with what is okay by you. All of them feelings will fly away. And you'll be looking for the feelings and be wondering where it went to, but you shouldn't expect it. In fact, you shouldn't be wondering where those feelings went to. Those feelings are not, they don't survive. Feelings don't survive under certain atmospheres. Feelings don't survive under certain circumstances. As a matter of fact, feelings are happenstance defined. Feelings are controlled by the happenings. So if the happenings are negative, the feelings are negative. If the happenings are positive, the feelings are positive. That is how inconsistent feelings can be. It is the reason why feelings cannot be the basis of your decision. No. 1,000 times no. They can't be, because they're not reliable. Values must be the basis. Similarity of values, agreement in values must be the basis for whether or not a relationship should continue. I don't care how many years you guys have gone in already. I don't care how much you think you've invested already. Listen, if the values are not working together, you better know that it's time to check out. Listen, you can't just do your life like nothing matters. There must be what is acceptable, and there must be what is not acceptable. There must be negotiables where it doesn't matter. There must be non-negotiables where, no, it has to be that way. Otherwise, nothing goes and nothing follows. And so you must sit down and pencil down what your non-negotiables are. It is what brings us to the place of boundaries. Anybody without boundaries is the person that does not have values. And the person that does not have values is the person that does not have convictions about anything. So for them, they fall for anything. Anything goes. And I'm not sure that's what you're looking at. Listen, it is your responsibility to teach people how to treat you. The way people, nobody should be blamed for the way they treat you. Nobody should be blamed for the way they come into your life and check out on your life. Nobody ought to be blamed for anything that is happening to you. You must take and accept responsibility for whatever is going on in your life. And the way you do that is that you decide what is allowed. By what you allow, you're teaching people how to treat you. By what you stop, you're teaching people how to treat you. By what you reinforce, you're teaching people how to treat you. What you allow is messed up with, then you reinforce it with restrictions and disciplines and deprivations. Or what you stopped, somebody's trying to mess with it, you reinforce it by some necessary actions that make it clear. You must sink into their forehead that no, this is not acceptable. You don't do that here. So these things are key. And so we say, what do you value most in a friendship? You must have to value something. If anything goes, then I'm afraid for you. On the platform, we had people, somebody said, what he values most in a friendship is respect. That was a guy. He said he interprets respect as love. That's it for every man. No, that's it for every man. For every man, respect is king. And without respect, then there's no relationship, especially for the man. The only difference is that we must come to the place where we define these values. You know, the this lady came in and then she was like, she was having quite some challenges in her relationship, and then she wanted to be counseled with. And so I got listening to her, and then she talked, and then she talked, and then she talked. But from all that she was saying, I could pick that she was disrespectful to her husband. But in all that she said, she kept emphasizing the fact that she was respectful to her husband. So I asked her, do you respect your husband? Of course I do. Okay, what's your definition of respect? She explained. What's your husband's definition of respect? She explained. I said, okay, let's take it one step further. Are there things you do that your husband has been talking about, complaining about, that he doesn't want you to do them? Are there things he wants you to stop doing when you keep doing them? She said, of course. And then she outlined them. I said, how do you convince even a daft, how do you convince even someone that is blind and deaf or something that you respect a man whose instructions you don't follow? How do you explain that? Listen, this is the man's definition of respect. It's not about your definition. You respect him in his own language. Let's start talking about the love languages. You can't love somebody in your own definition, in your own terms. Otherwise, you are fully spent, and the person is wondering whether you're okay. The reason is because you are loving somebody by your own definition of love. Excuse me, focus on what makes sense to him. Give it to him, and you will see the entire atmosphere in the home is going to change. For this guy, respect is profound. Someone else here talked about honesty. She said, nothing trips me more than meeting someone who is honest and transparent. Amazing. This lady doesn't mess with honesty. Now listen. Oftentimes when people create values like this, values don't just come from the moon. People create values based on their experiences, their struggles, their disadvantages. Listen, everybody you meet on the face of the earth is either running away from something or running into something. They're probably running away from pain and trying to run away into joy, excitement, and happiness. And as soon as you represent pain, as soon as anything about you unfolds pain, all they hear is pain, and they're running away from you. And they're running in the direction of someone who has joy for them. And so it's so important that you know what people value and position for that. And of course, you don't have to be remodified to please anybody. If their values are inconsistent with your values, then you check out. Nobody is saying go there and do what people want just to impress people. No, you have your values. There are people that will respect you for your values. They have their values. There are people that will respect them for their values. But as soon as we cannot agree when it comes to value-based issues, we don't need a prophet to tell us that it's okay to go our separate ways. So for somebody to talk about honesty, you don't know what it is that the person has dealt with in life. Beyond all this, people develop values based on convictions. And oftentimes, people are ready to die for what they believe. You don't want to mess with it. So it's so important that I don't have time to go into all the submissions on the platform, but it's important that you have these conversations. The reason we're talking about asking questions, answering questions, the reason we're talking about holding conversations is because it is in the course of conversations that you will be able to recognize, realize, detect, decode, decipher that this person is operating at the same frequency with you. Mental frequency, spiritual frequency, emotional frequency, intellectual frequency, goals and aspirations. There are all dimensions of frequency. It becomes key so that as soon as you realize that you guys are on varied frequencies, irreconcilable frequencies, how in the world do you convince me that those who divorce at the end of 2, 3, 4 or more years based on irreconcilable differences, so-called, did not see, did not notice, did not observe these irreconcilable differences? Just because they were not precise, they were not specific, they were not they didn't give respect to prioritization. It is the reason why they overlooked the important and focused on the urgent, and today their lives are embarrassed. That's not going to happen to you. I'm afraid that's all I can take tonight. I gotta go back to class. Thank you so much for being a part of this podcast. I'll see you again.